we're joined by our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who's traveling the country with candidates all over the country. He's got a great sense of where things stand, but also a new piece up, exclusive for us at ACLJ.org from Secretary Pompeo on Biden's backward education policies hurting our children. We know we're seeing these races out, like in Oregon, where education is the driving factor. And I think it's awesome that you're seeing these moms running for office saying, I'm running because of my kids' education, because of your kids' education. And you point out, Secretary Pompeo, that the National Assessment of Education Progress just released shows how much harm just the lockdowns measures had on the education of our children. I mean, some are estimating they're 2 years behind because of those lockdowns. What do you think needs to happen so that our children receive the education they need?
Well, Jordan, this data, and you, Jay, we're all about facts and science. This data is tragic, and what it points out is decisions matter. Who we elect matters. Who sits as school superintendents matters. How we handle teachers unions. These things matter. This was a political decision to keep our kids out of school all this time. The science didn't support it. The teachers unions drove it, and the people who will suffer the most will be the kids who can, frankly, least afford to have lost that time around their peers with their teachers, learning, socializing, becoming better at reading and math, all the things that matter. The fix, Jordan, is also pretty straightforward. The fix is the people of America demanding that we get our schools back. And you hear it when you have callers or parents, moms, even grandparents who are seeing their grandkids taught garbage in schools. They're walking it back. They're going to grab back what our kids are being taught. And there's almost nothing in America today that is more important than getting this right.
I think it could be revolutionary. We know if we can get our schools back on track and what they're teaching back on track, you have a generation of kids that hasn't been indoctrinated. Yeah, but also because they're spending too much time on indoctrination, not enough time on reading and math.
But then, Mike, at the same time, you got the Department of Justice saying that a parent going to a school board meeting could be labeled a domestic terrorist. And then we got this latest thing with the Department of Justice, FBI, issuing a memorandum about what are election crimes, and they include in there misinformation about an election that is misleading or false, even if it was given mistakenly or unintentionally. And then, like I said, at the same time, they're labeling parents that go to a school board meeting as domestic terrorists.
That statement from Justice is stunning. Would that include the President of the United States giving a speech where he said that gas was $5 a gallon when he took office?
Yeah, yes, because it doesn't require intent.
Yeah, even if he was mistaken.
Yeah, even unintentionally.
There was clearly no intent there for a host of reasons. But factually, he puts this out to the whole world. Look, it is absolutely dangerous when you have an FBI and a Justice Department that are beginning to prosecute parents for doing nothing more than demanding that their kids be taught things that are consistent with their value set. With the simple things about family and the fact that there are only two genders and math matters. 2 + 2 is, in fact, 4. And our nation was founded on a noble idea, not a racist principle. When parents are asking for that and the Justice Department is following a lockout of kids with a lockup of parents, that puts the country in the wrong place. The good news is, Jay, I think I've been out there. I'm going to be in Ohio this afternoon. I'm going to be down in Florida on Sunday. I am convinced that parents and families across the country are had enough of it. They opened the black box. They saw what was inside, and they're about to go unpack that black box in a way that will redound to the benefit of our country and every family.
People talk a lot because you're on the trail. So you're in Ohio right now, the huge race there with J.D. Vance. And then in Florida, DeSantis, Rubio, and lots of House races as well in both those places. But people have talked about the Democrats wanting to make, especially they're talking about the suburban, the mom vote. It's going to be all about abortion. And yet it now appears we're seeing in the Pacific Northwest and in the Northeast, in places with races that weren't even on the map, where it is this mom vote, if you want to call it that, again, is saying it's not about abortion. It is about education. This could you think this could be like the issue that is that one that's tough to poll, where it's that group of maybe they're not hard partisans, but this is going to get a whole group of people out to vote who are just upset with where the Democrats have taken education?
I think it's happening. I can feel it. I'm confident I'll see it down in Florida. I'll see it in every community. Communities that are well off, communities that are less well off. We'll see this in Hispanic communities. We're seeing it. I was in Texas talking about these congressional races in the valley along the border in Texas. These are people who want to go to church, raise their families, and have a job, and not be at risk when their kids go out in the street that some criminal is going to go take them and abduct them. These are the basic things. It's what people are going to have already voted on in the first days of voting, and will vote on November 8th as well. I'm convinced of it. We all know I'm pro-life. Abortion is an important issue. Roe was right, but in the end, folks are going to vote based on the things that matter most to their children and their families.
Yeah, I mean, Roe needed to go. Roe was overturned. By the way, Justice Alito could not be any more clear. Yet the left saw that was going to be their running. They're running on that. That's going to be, and I think it may have motivated some of their base, but obviously with the way the polling data is going, and I'm always nervous with polls, you don't know. But I think about this. Under your administration, 19 months ago, we were energy independent. Mortgage rates were about 2.5%. You could even get some at 1 7/8. You weren't having the situation with crime in the cities. It was crime in the cities, but it's because the policies of these mayors were absurd. But now it's much more rampant. We said yesterday, we had Professor Hutchinson on, who said that the cost of your housing basically went up 72%. If you bought a house for $400,000 a year ago at 2.5%, today that $400,000 house would be costing you the equivalent of an $800,000 house. This is a real economic impact on real people across the board.
Oh, my gosh. Think gasoline. Think, when it gets cold and you get that next bill from your electric company, not just mortgages, too. Families that rent their homes, rents are now 10, 12, 15% higher than they were just 4 or 5 months ago. And Jay and George, the thing is, sometimes bad things befall people. This was political. These were choices that were made. These were decisions that were made by Joe Biden. He said, we're going to shut in American energy, so we're not going to have affordable energy for working class people. He said, we're going to kick our kids out of the schools. And he drove a set of regulations that now drove inflation through the roof. The bad news is those were choices they made. The good news is they are fixable with sensible policies that deliver for American people.
I had another follow-up on this, and this is because we get this call a lot, and that is, well, so the Republicans get the House and Senate, so what does it mean? Well, it means a lot. I mean, you can stop things, and I think that's what people need to understand. Stopping things is very important right now.
You wouldn't have the Inflation Reduction Act. You'd have less than $31 trillion in debt. Inflation would be a fraction of what it is today as a result of those bills not having been passed. There would be so many things. We'd have a better chance to actually secure our southern border. All of these things, even if you don't have the White House, if you have control of the agenda and majorities in the House and Senate, and don't forget governor's races, district attorneys' races, state legislators all across the country, these things actually matter. We'll get a shot at reclaiming the White House in a couple years, but what happens in the next couple of weeks will set the tone, the direction, and has the chance to reclaim our country long before 2024.
Secretary Pompeo, as always, we appreciate all of your insight, and especially now as you're traveling the country. It's great to get those insights, get our listeners updated on what's happening all across the country. So we appreciate it. Our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs. Thank you, Secretary Pompeo, for joining us. And check out that new piece up at aclj.org.